Okay, we're on. Council acknowledges the Wadawurrung traditional owners of this land, and I pay my respects to all elders past and present and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today. This meeting is being broadcast on the internet and the recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to tonight's special meeting of the Council. With our health and safety measures continuing, once again we don't have members of the community with us in the chamber, but as always we're glad to have you watching via the live stream. We have two items to consider tonight, a draft public transparency policy and a set of draft governance rules. And a quick explanation for anyone wondering why we had to call a special meeting for these items. Both of the documents need to be adopted by Council by the 1st of September, and had we waited until next week's meeting to discuss them, it wouldn't have left enough time to release them for an appropriate period of community feedback. We want to give you all as much time as you need to read and digest the two draft documents and to give us any suggestions or ideas on how they might be improved. So, with that, I will begin, but not quite begin the meeting, because I would like to just take this opportunity to acknowledge that this is the last council meeting for Brett Luxford, the City's Director of Economic Investment and Attraction. Brett is leaving the city to become the next CEO of Mitchell Shire Council, which is a fantastic opportunity for Brett and one at which I have no doubt he will excel, and we have all told him he'll need to take his mask with him. Brett joined the city in February 2016 and he's been a dedicated and people-focused leader for not only the Economy, Investment and Attraction Directorate, but for the city as a whole. He's well respected and has developed exceptional relationships with key stakeholders within the region and more broadly across the local government sector. Brett was also the acting CEO of the city for the 3 months prior to Martin Cutter starting in the role. Brett will finish on the city on Friday, the 24th of July, and on behalf of all the councillors, I would like to thank Brett for his contribution to the City of Greater Geelong and to wish him all the best for his new role. So, apologies for tonight. I've received apologies from Councillor Sullivan and from Councillor Mansfield. Do we have any other apologies? No. Declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict in relation to tonight's agenda? If any do arise during the meeting, please make them known. And if you're in any doubt about what a conflict of interest means, consider reading the procedures that we're going to consider tonight, the governance rules, and always better to be safe than sorry. So we'll launch straight into Section B, the reports. We have the first item is the draft public transparency policy, which I think is going to be moved by Councillor Mason, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. Thanks, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Council has recommended to endorse the release of the draft public transparency policy for 3 weeks of community consultation. The proposed policy has been adjusted to align with the new Local Government Act 2020, as you just advised us before, and it does need to go through public consultation and be adopted by Council by the 1st of September 2020. Mayor Asher, transparency is a cornerstone of our democracy, and this policy defines what can and cannot be made publicly available, and it ensures that trust and integrity of decision making, how we can best improve access to information, and how we can reduce unnecessary hurdles and time-wasting red tape. Meanwhile, we must also respect the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities, public interest, commercial negotiations, privacy laws, and confidential information as defined by the Act. Mayor Asher, without participation, there can be little commitment. If we want compliance, then the public must have a clear understanding of what the Council is doing. Transparency improves commitment and public confidence in decisions. That is why we all need access to as much information as possible before, while and after a decision has been made.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Couldn't agree more. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mason. You've covered that very well. I think one of the things that I remember when I was campaigning to become a councillor was around to ensure that I do my best to ensure that the transparency of decision making at council was very clear. This is a draft, obviously, and we would like to hear from the community about whether they are agreeing with this policy, whether the types of information that in there that are deemed to be confidential, the description on which they will fall into that category. Is that the right information to hold back? Is that the right information to release? So it'll be really interesting to see how much feedback we do get about this particular policy, and this will come back to us prior to caretaker period. So we are wanting to get a quick turnaround. You've got 3 weeks. And look, I think that I think that the officers have done a really good job with this particular policy. It will require a few tweaks, and let's wait to see the feedback from the community.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other councillors like to comment on the transparency policy? Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much. Mayor Asher, look, I've run my lens over this particular transparency document. I'm glad it's going out for public consultation, and I also encourage the community to run their lens over this particular document as well too. Essentially, this is actually listing a whole lot of registers that the council has to try and improve the transparency of information that council has, but there's a significant glaring omission from that opportunity, and that is that property developer relationships with councillors and senior executive of local governments has actually been the biggest problem in local government for about the last 20 to 25 years. Geelong itself has a history of problems with property developer contributions and election campaign donations, and we've actually recently seen the sacking of the city of Casey primarily under that. And I think that there's a real opportunity to try, from Geelong's sense anyway, to social leadership in this issue of transparency and creating a new register, and that register should actually be a list of meetings that councillors and senior management have with property developers within the boundaries of the City of Greater Geelong and those interests. So I certainly foreshadowed during the public consultation period that I'll be putting up my own recommendations to the council group, and I really think that there's a really unique opportunity for the council to not just package their existing registers as this particular policy does, but actually try and expand on those and attempt to try to address one of the scourges of local government, which is the unnecessary healthy relationship that exists between property developers who are trying to push their own interests, councillors who are attempting to get re-elected or elected, and officials that have actually taken bribes or other things to actually influence decision making as well too. So I think there's a real opportunity for Geelong social leadership in this issue, Mayor Asher. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Aitken. Any other comments on this item? Back to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I hear what Councillor Aitken has said, and indeed it is very good that this is going out for community consultation, and the spirit of this document is that decisions are informed through community engagement. So the essence of this document is alive and well. And another element is that where any person whose rights will be directly affected, they'll be entitled to communicate their views and have their interests considered. In addition, there are provisions for the freedom of information and access to information, and all of that's there for people to peruse and give their inputs. And I endorse the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Okay, the second item is the draft governance rules, and I'll move this one, seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. The draft governance rules is basically also includes the election period policy and part of the suite of documents that will be going out to community consultation, this one for a 3-week period as well. And this set of rules basically brings together a range of elements into one document as a reference for community and for council. And broadly, the governance rules are based on the council's existing meeting procedures, and it includes some changes to how council make decisions and conduct meetings, how the mayor and deputy mayor are elected, provision to hold joint council meetings, and the governance rules also incorporate procedures for the disclosure of a conflict of interest, which is critical for us, a framework to consider and make decisions fairly and on merit, and the council's election period policy. There's a full summary of changes in the attachment, and if there's any other councillors that want to talk any further about any of those, I invite them to do so. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think one of the incorporations that I quite liked about these governance rules are that it's a gender-neutral language, and Councillor, last week when we were having a briefing, it was one of the things that the councillors raised to make sure that we are not specific and in relation to the gender, and making sure that how the mayor and the deputy mayor and those are addressed in the chamber. It is good to have those gender neutral opportunities there for use when required. I guess I'm a little concerned at some of the changes made in the governance rules, but I will reserve that decision and thinking until we get all the feedback from the community. So I really want to hear from them about, these are the governance rules, these are required by the new Local Government Act, and so how we've pushed them all together under the governance rules. This will be a really important document as to how we manage things in the chamber, and how we also integrate some of those really high-level changes that the Local Government Act has been asked us to put in. So that's probably it, Madam Mayor, I think.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other comments about any of these elements in the draft governance rules? Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Yeah, look, I foreshadowed too that I want to provide some feedback on this particular document as well too. It's actually quite significant. A component of it is in relation to changes associated with the new Local Government Act, which was adopted earlier this year by the State Parliament, but also a significant other part of it is changes that the administration and management wish to bring before the council. One of the areas that does concern me is the restrictions that are going to be replaced on notice of motions of councillors. I personally will probably bring back to the council group some proposed changes to that, because I do believe that they're, as it's currently worded in the draft, they are too restrictive. They actually provide a restraint on councillors with one of what is their few democratic rights, which is the notice of motion processes that we have. The proposals in this document actually are quite restrictive in terms of financial limits of $50,000, and as a consequence, I certainly intend to foreshadow bringing back my own feedback and seek the support of my fellow councillors to modify those, to try and find a compromise between the management's attempt to try to restrain and restrict the councillors with notice of motions and our responsibilities with representing the broader community and using notice of motions as a means to try to represent our community base. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Any other councillors have comments on the draft governance rules? No? Okay. Just note that if we do now vote to release the rules, which I'm presuming we will, residents will have the chance to view and comment on the proposed rules from tomorrow. So it'll be on the Geelong Australia website, Your Say page, so that's yoursay.geelongaustralia.com.au, so you can get straight on and have a read. Might take you 3 weeks to get through them. They're quite long and intensive, but they're fascinating. And it does actually provide quite an education around how councillors do their business and what our roles and responsibilities are too. So I do encourage people to have a look. So we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. That's the conclusion of the meeting. So we concluded at, I think that clock's fast, 7:14, I would say, 7:14 p.m. Thank you.